I'm Vanessa Riley, 30 years old now, running a nonprofit that changes kids' lives. But 12 years ago, my world fell apart. My parents drove me to Deschutes National Forest, Oregon, calling it a family adventure. I was 18, excited, naive. Then I woke up completely alone. Their car, gone. My phone, no signal. Just a note pinned to my backpack. Find your own way home. This is a lesson for you. My heart pounded as I realized I'd been abandoned in the middle of nowhere. Panic hit, but something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to break. That moment shaped everything: my resilience, my career, my life. Years later, they came crawling back desperate with 28 missed calls and a weak text. Please. But by then, I had a lesson of my own to teach them. Don't miss what happens next, where truth and revenge collide. Stay tuned to see it all unfold. It was a warm summer afternoon when my parents announced a family adventure to Deschutes National Forest in Oregon. I was 18, buzzing with excitement for a weekend of hiking and bonding. Mom and Dad had always been strict, hammering lessons about toughness into me, but I trusted them. We piled into their creaky SUV, me, Mom, Dad, and my sister swapping stories about s'mores and stars. The forest unfolded ahead, a sea of pines under a golden sky. They parked at a trailhead, handed me a backpack heavier than usual, and said they'd set up camp nearby. Go explore. Dad said, his tone clipped but familiar. I nodded, eager, and headed down a narrow path, my boots crunching on pine needles, the air sharp with sap. An hour later, I circled back to an empty clearing. The SUV was gone. My stomach lurched. Mom, Dad, I shouted, voice bouncing off the trees unanswered. I checked my phone, no bars, just a dead screen mocking me. My hands trembled as I unzipped my backpack, fumbling for water, and found a folded note tucked inside. In Dad's sharp handwriting, it read, "Find your own way home. This is a lesson for you." My breath hitched, heart slamming against my ribs. They'd abandoned me, in a forest stretching endless miles. The betrayal burned raw and suffocating, like a blade twisting in my chest. Were they serious? Was this their sick idea of teaching me? I wanted to scream, to collapse, but a stubborn spark inside me refused to let them win. I started walking, legs unsteady, the forest pressing closer with every step. The trail was barely visible, weaving through dense pines. I stumbled over a root, scraping my knee, the sting sharp, but drowned by the panic clawing my chest. What if I never found a way out? What about bears or wolves? I pulled out a crumpled map from my backpack, useless without a landmark. My water bottle was nearly empty, my throat burning dry and tight. 2 hours dragged by, maybe 3, time blurred in my haze of fear. Strange rustles in the bushes made me freeze, heart racing, imagining eyes watching from the shadows. But I kept moving, driven by a resolve I didn't know I had, whispering to myself, "You're not breaking here." The sky glowed orange as footsteps crunched behind me. A hiker, mid-30s, appeared, his backpack slung over one shoulder, a water bottle clipped to his belt. "You okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing at my pale face and shaking hands. My voice cracked as I handed him the note. He read it, eyes widening, jaw tightening. "This is beyond messed up. Who does this to their own kid?" He shook his head, then added, "I'm hiking out here to clear my head after a rough week. Never expected this." I nodded, too shaken to respond. "Come on, my truck's a mile away. I'll get you to town." I followed, legs heavy but grateful, as he led me to a dirt road. In his truck, he handed me his phone. "Call someone you trust," he said, his voice steady. I dialed, my aunt, hands still trembling. She answered instantly. "Vanessa, where are you?" Her tone was sharp, laced with worry. I choked out the story. The forest, the note, my parents' betrayal. "Stay put," she said, firm but warm. "I'm in Bend, an hour away. I'm coming." The hiker stayed with me at a gas station, his presence grounding. He handed me a granola bar, saying, "You're tougher than they think. Hang in there. I managed a weak smile, clutching the phone like a lifeline. An hour later, my aunt's car screeched into the lot. She stepped out face tight with fury and pulled me into a fierce hug. "You're safe now," she whispered, her voice thick. I nodded, the weight of my parents' cruelty sinking deeper, a wound that wouldn't fade. That night, in the silence of my aunt's car, I made a choice. I wanted a life they couldn't control. My aunt's small house in Bend, Oregon became my haven. She cleared out her guest room, setting up a bed with crisp sheets and a lamp that cast a warm glow. "This is your home now," she said, her voice, steady, eyes soft with understanding. I nodded, gripping the edge of the bed, still reeling from the forest but determined to start over. The first few days were a blur of rage and hurt. I'd wake up heart racing, replaying Dad's handwriting. "Find your own way home." How could parents do that? My sister hadn't even warned me she was there, silent in the SUV. I pushed those thoughts down, focusing on what was ahead. My aunt sat me down one evening, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "You're stronger than their nonsense," she said. "You choose your path now." Her words landed like a lifeline. She'd never gotten along with Mom, always calling out their harsh ways, and now she was my anchor. I decided to cut contact. When Mom called a week later, her voice sharp through the phone, demanding I come home, I froze. "You need to grow up, Vanessa," she snapped. I clenched my fist, heart pounding with defiance, and said, "I'm done." I hung up, hands shaking but lighter, like I'd shed a weight. Dad tried next, leaving a voicemail. "Don't be ungrateful." I deleted it without listening to the end. My aunt overheard, her jaw tight, and said, "You don't owe them anything." That sealed it. I was done with them. I needed a plan. College felt like the only way to build something real, something mine. My aunt helped me apply to the University of Oregon, just a couple of hours from Bend. I chose social work, drawn to helping kids who felt lost like I had. The application process was grueling: forms, essays, deadlines. But my aunt stayed up with me, proofreading, offering coffee, and quiet encouragement. When the acceptance letter arrived, I stared at it, a knot loosening in my chest. "You did this?" my aunt said, smiling. She covered my first semester's deposit, a gift I swore I'd repay someday. Money was tight. My aunt's job as a nurse kept us afloat, but I couldn't lean on her forever. I landed a part-time job at a coffee shop near campus, steaming milk and wiping counters until my arms ached. The pay was barely enough for books and rent, but every dollar felt like a step away from Mom and Dad's shadow. I'd work morning shifts, then race to class, juggling notes and exhaustion. My aunt slipped me grocery money when I wasn't looking, leaving cash in my backpack with a note for snacks. I'd roll my eyes but hug her, grateful for her quiet support. Classes were hard but freeing. I sat in lectures, soaking up ideas about community resilience, helping others. For the first time, I felt like I was building something, not just surviving. My professors noticed my drive, when even pulling me aside to say, "You've got a spark. Don't lose it." I clung to that, letting it fuel late-night study sessions and long shifts. My aunt's house was my refuge, where I'd crash on her couch, laughing over her bad cooking or her stories about hospital chaos. She never pushed me to talk about Mom or Dad, but she'd listen when I needed to vent. A month into the semester, I got another call from Dad. "You're throwing away family," he barked. I didn't flinch this time. "You threw me away first," I said, voice steady, and hung up. The words felt final, like closing a door. I looked around my aunt's living room, books scattered, her cat curled up beside me, and felt a flicker of hope. I was free, or at least starting to be. By the end of that first semester, I'd carved out a new beginning. College opened a door, but I wanted more than just a degree. I wanted to lead, to build something meaningful from the ashes of my parents' betrayal. In my social work classes at the University of Oregon, I soaked up every lesson on leadership, how to inspire, organize, and uplift others. My professors pushed us to think big, and I signed up for workshops, learning how to run meetings, resolve conflicts, and rally a team. Those skills felt like tools to rebuild myself piece by piece after mom and dad left me to fend for myself. I landed a job at a community center in Eugene just off campus. It wasn't glamorous stacking chairs, planning kids' activities, teaching basic skills like teamwork and problem solving. But being around those kids, many from tough homes, hit close to my heart. I saw myself in their wary eyes, their guarded smiles. I'd been that kid abandoned with a note told to figure it out. So I poured everything into the work designing workshops to help them feel seen, capable. My supervisor noticed, saying, "You've got a knack for this, Vanessa." That fueled me a quiet fire to keep going. One day, while organizing a youth event, I met Kristen Walsh. She was a volunteer, sharp and driven, with a quick laugh and a no-nonsense vibe. We clicked instantly, swapping ideas over coffee about how to engage the kids better. "You're not just here to check boxes," she said, eyeing my detailed plans. "You actually care." Kristen became my sounding board, challenging me to think bigger. When I shared my dream of starting a nonprofit to teach life skills to kids in need, she didn't blink. "Let's make it happen," she said, rolling up her sleeves. She was 28, a few years older, but we became inseparable, like sisters I'd chosen for myself. Starting the nonprofit was brutal. I was 24, fresh out of college, with no money and big ideas. Kristen and I spent nights drafting proposals, hunting for grants, navigating legal paperwork. We called it Bright Futures, a program to teach kids resilience, communication, goal-setting, things I wished I'd had when I was left in that forest. My old wounds drove me. Every time I doubted myself, I remembered Dad's note, his cold lesson, and pushed harder. Kristen kept me grounded, crunching numbers while I pitched to donors. Our first grant came through after months of rejections, a small $5,000 check that felt like a fortune. We celebrated with cheap pizza, laughing until we cried. The work wasn't easy. Some days I'd drag myself to the center after a 12-hour shift, exhausted but determined. Kids would show up, some angry, some shy, and I'd teach them how to set goals, how to speak up. One boy, maybe 12, reminded me of myself, quiet but fierce. When he nailed a presentation after weeks of coaching, I felt a surge of pride, like I was rewriting my own story. Kristen was there, cheering him on, then nudging me. "You're changing lives, Vanessa." Her belief in me was unshakable, and it carried me through the grind. I hadn't spoken to Mom or Dad in years. They'd tried calling once or twice after I moved out, but I let their voicemails pile up unanswered. My sister sent a birthday card once, but it felt hollow, like she was still under their thumb. I didn't need them. My life was mine now, built on my terms with people who valued me. Kristen and I grew Bright Futures, expanding to 2 more towns in Oregon. By 28, I was running a team of volunteers, speaking at community events, even landing a local news feature. The headline called me a beacon for youth, and I saved that clipping, proof I'd turned pain into purpose. Our first big event was a summer camp for 50 kids, teaching leadership through games and projects. I stood in front of them, nervous but steady, sharing a piece of my story, not the forest, but the idea that you can rise above hard starts. The kids listened, rapt, and when they clapped, I felt unstoppable. Kristen squeezed my shoulder, whispering, "You did this." That night, driving home, I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. Then, out of nowhere, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. The number looked vaguely familiar, but I ignored it, busy with a grant deadline. Then it rang again. And again. By noon, my phone buzzed with 28 missed calls, all from the same number. My stomach tightened, a flicker of unease cutting through my focus. I checked the voicemails. Linda Harris's voice, sharp and demanding, filled my inbox. "Vanessa, it's your mother. We need to talk. Call me back." No warmth, no apology, just that old commanding tone I hadn't heard since I was 18. Then came the texts. "Michael, my dad sent the first. We're in trouble, Vanessa. We need your help." Another followed from Mom. "You've done well for yourself. Don't turn your back on family now." My jaw clenched as I read. Family. The word stung, conjuring that note they left me in Deschutes, their so-called lesson. I scrolled through more messages, each one more desperate. They'd sunk their savings into a string of bad real estate deals, condos in Arizona that tanked when the market crashed. Now they were broke, begging for a bailout. The audacity hit me like a slap. After 12 years of silence, they thought I owed them. I was still fuming when my sister Stacy called. I hadn't spoken to her in ages. She'd stayed close to Mom and Dad, never fully breaking free. "Vanessa, don't trust them," she said, her voice low, urgent. "They've been watching you on X and Instagram. They know about your nonprofit, the news articles, everything. They think you're loaded and owe them for raising you." My blood ran cold. I opened X on my phone, searching their names. Sure enough, Linda and Michael Harris had accounts following mine, liking posts about Bright Futures' summer camp, even commenting, "So proud of our daughter." The hypocrisy made my skin crawl. They weren't proud. They were scheming. I sat at my desk, staring at those comments, my pulse racing with anger. They'd tracked my life like vultures, waiting for a moment to swoop in. Stacy's warning rang true. She'd seen them gloating over my news feature, calculating how to cash in. I remembered Mom's voice from years ago, snapping, "You need to grow up," when I refused to come home. Now they were the ones desperate, and I felt nothing but disgust. I texted Kristen, my best friend from the community center, a quick rundown. She replied instantly, "They don't deserve a dime from you. Stay strong." Her words steadied me, a reminder of the family I'd built, not the one I'd lost. I called Mom back, my voice calm but ice cold. "Linda, I'm not helping you," I said, using her name to draw a line. She sputtered, "We're your parents. We're losing everything." I cut her off. "You lost me 12 years ago. I don't owe you anything." I hung up, my hands steady now, a weight lifting. Dad tried next, his text dripping with guilt. "We raised you, Vanessa. Don't do this to us." I didn't reply. Instead, I blocked their numbers, shutting the door I'd closed years ago. Stacy texted again, saying she'd tried to warn them off, but they were obsessed, convinced I'd cave. I leaned back, exhaling, my mind racing but clear. They'd underestimated me, thinking they could manipulate me with their sob story. I checked Instagram again, noticing their accounts had gone quiet after my news feature aired. They'd been lurking, planning, but I wasn't that scared 18-year-old anymore. I'd built a life, Bright Futures, Kristen, a purpose without them. Helping kids through my nonprofit was my way of healing, not their ticket to a payout. I wasn't falling for their games. The next morning, I woke to a notification that changed everything. My phone buzzed with alerts from X tagging me in a post by Linda. The words hit like a gut punch. "Our daughter Vanessa turned her back on us after we gave her everything. Now she's a hero while we're broke. Ungrateful." Michael shared it, adding, "She abandoned her family." The post was on Instagram too, with a blurry photo of me from years ago captioned, "This is who you're praising." By noon, it had thousands of likes, hundreds of comments calling me selfish, a fraud. My inbox flooded with emails from strangers. "You should be ashamed," one read. Another, "Help your parents." I stared at my screen, my chest tight with fury, their lies spreading like wildfire. I'd blocked Linda and Michael after their 28 calls begging for money, but they'd found a new way to twist the knife. Their posts painted me as the villain, conveniently skipping the part where they left me in a forest at 18 with a note to find my own way home. The hypocrisy was staggering. They'd ignored me for 12 years, only to resurface when their real estate ventures tanked. Now they were weaponizing social media to shame me into submission. I felt exposed, like the world was judging a story they didn't know. I called Kristen, my voice shaking. "They're lying about me online," I said, forwarding her the posts. She was at my apartment in an hour, laptop open, scrolling through the comments. "This is a smear campaign," she said, her eyes narrowing. "We need to fight back with the truth." Kristen pulled up the texts from Linda and Michael, the ones demanding money for their failed condos. "These show their motives," she said, saving screenshots. She also found an email they'd sent me last week admitting their financial ruin, but framing it as my fault for not stepping up. It was manipulative classic them, and Kristen knew it could prove their dishonesty. Then, Stacy called. My sister had been distant caught in mom and dad's orbit, but her warning about their schemes had opened a door between us. Vanessa, they've been planning this, she said, her voice tense. They've got emails from years ago twisting your story to make you look bad. I've got some of them. She sent me a folder messages from Linda to a cousin claiming I'd stolen my success from the family, and a text from Michael bragging about teaching me a lesson in the forest. The evidence was damning, a paper trail of their lies and manipulation. Stacy hesitated, then added, I should have stood up to them sooner. I'm with you now. Her support, unexpected but fierce, steadied me. The public pressure was suffocating. My nonprofit Bright Futures started getting hate messages, people calling us a scam, donors asking questions. I paced my apartment, my mind a storm of anger and fear. What if this ruined everything I'd built? Kristen sat me down, her voice firm. You're not alone in this, she said. We've got the truth, and we'll use it. We spent hours organizing the evidence, their texts begging for cash, the email blaming me for their bankruptcy, Stacy's screenshots of their old messages. Each piece was a brick in the wall we were building to expose them. I couldn't sleep that night, scrolling through the venomous comments on X. Ungrateful daughter, spoiled brat, they called me. But I noticed something else. Some users were skeptical, asking for proof, questioning Linda and Michael's story. It gave me a spark of hope. I wasn't helpless anymore, not the kid lost in the woods. With Kristen and Stacy by my side, I had a plan. We drafted a response, careful but sharp, to set the record straight without sinking to their level. Kristen suggested a lawyer friend who could review it, ensuring we stayed above board. Stacy offered to share her own statement, distancing herself from mom and dad's lies. By the third day, the posts were still trending, but I felt a shift. The evidence was ready, my resolve hardened. I wasn't just defending myself, I was protecting the kids at Bright Futures, the life I'd fought for. Kristen squeezed my hand, saying, You're stronger than their garbage. Stacy texted, Show them who you are. I nodded, ready to take control. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and started typing. The lies Linda and Michael spread on X and Instagram had pushed me to the edge. Calling me ungrateful, twisting my story, it was time to set things right. I wasn't just fighting for myself, but for Bright Futures, the kids we served, and the truth. With Kristen's help, I'd polished a script weaving together the evidence we'd gathered, their texts begging for money, emails blaming me for their ruin, and Stacy's screenshots exposing their schemes. My sister Stacy had even sent a short video statement confirming their manipulation. I set up my webcam, heart steady but burning, and hit go live on YouTube. The live stream began with a deep breath. I'm Vanessa Riley, I said, voice clear, eyes locked on the camera. You've seen posts calling me a selfish daughter. Here's the real story. I shared the truth of that summer 12 years ago when I was 18, left alone in Deschutes National Forest, with a note from my parents, find your own way home. This is a lesson for you. I kept it brief, focusing on their abandonment, not the fear or the hiker who saved me. Then I displayed their texts, one demanding thousands to save their home, another guilt-tripping me for turning my back. I showed Michael's email claiming my success was their doing, and Linda's message to a cousin painting me as a thief of their legacy. The chat exploded, viewers typing, "That's awful." And how could they? Kristen monitored the comments from her phone, texting me, "Updates, people are with you." I felt a surge of strength knowing Stacy was watching too, her video ready if I needed it. I looked straight into the lens and said, Linda and Michael called their abandonment a lesson. Well, this is your lesson. The words, their own from that cruel note, felt like a blade I'd turned back on them. I wasn't just exposing their lies. I was reclaiming my story. As I spoke, the viewer count climbed 10,000, then 50,000. Clips of the live stream spread on X hashtags like Vanessa Truth trending. I shared how I'd built bright futures to help kids like me, kids who felt discarded. I didn't abandon my family, I said. They abandoned me, then tried to profit off my work. I showed one last piece of evidence, a text from Linda sent days ago threatening to tell everyone unless I paid up. The chat roared with support. "You're a hero, keep fighting." Kristen texted, "You're killing it." Stacy messaged, "I'm proud of you." Their words fueled me, a shield against the hate I'd faced. By the time I ended the stream, it had been viewed live by 80,000 people. I leaned back exhausted but lighter, like I'd shed years of weight. Within hours, the narrative flipped. News outlets picked up the story, running headlines like "Nonprofit Leader Exposes Parents' Lies." Ex-users shared screenshots of my evidence, tearing apart Linda and Michael's posts. Their accounts went silent, comments disabled as the public turned on them. Donors who doubted bright futures emailed apologies, pledging support. A local reporter reached out wanting an interview. The kids at our program sent messages, one saying, "You're the strongest person I know." My eyes stung, but I smiled. Kristen came over that night bringing takeout and a grin. "You turned their game against them," she said, raising a soda can in a mock toast. Stacy called, her voice soft but firm. "They're done, Vanessa. You showed everyone who they are." I nodded, feeling a quiet victory. Linda and Michael had tried to break me again, but this time I'd stood taller. Bright Futures was safe. My name cleared. The public's support wasn't just vindication, it was justice, hard-won and undeniable. I thought it was over, but a week later I got an unexpected email. It was from a lawyer representing a group of neighbors and former business partners of Linda and Michael. They were suing my parents for defamation, citing their false posts on X and Instagram as part of a pattern of deceit tied to their failed real estate deals. The email detailed how Linda and Michael's lies about me had unraveled their credibility. Partners refused to work with them, their social circle shunned them, and their last assets were frozen in legal battles. I read the email twice, a strange calm settling over me. Their actions had finally caught up with them. I didn't feel joy, just a quiet resolve. Linda sent me a letter days later, handwritten, pleading for forgiveness, claiming they were desperate and didn't mean to hurt me. It was too late. I tore it up, my hands steady, knowing I'd closed that chapter long ago. Michael tried emailing a weak apology laced with excuses, but I deleted it unread. I'd spent 12 years building a life without them, and their downfall wasn't my burden. I blocked their emails, severing the last thread of contact, a final boundary set in stone. Bright Futures was thriving again. The livestream had restored our reputation, and donations poured in stronger than ever. I expanded our programs, opening a new center in Portland to teach kids leadership and resilience. Every workshop, every smile from a child reminded me why I kept going. My past, the forest, the note, the betrayal had forged me, but it didn't define me. I'd turned pain into purpose, and no one could take that away. My team grew, and I hired more staff, each one dedicated to helping kids like I once was. My real family wasn't the one I was born into. It was the one I chose. My aunt, who'd given me a home when I had none, was still my rock, calling to check in, her voice warm with pride. Stacy, my sister, had become an ally, her courage in standing against our parents, a bridge we were slowly rebuilding. Kristen, my best friend, was there through every crisis, her laughter and fierce loyalty, a constant light. They were my strength, my chosen family, proof that love is earned, not owed. I'd learned to surround myself with people who lifted me up, not tore me down. Looking back, I saw the lesson clearer than ever. Self-reliance isn't just surviving, it's thriving on your own terms. Setting boundaries with toxic family wasn't weakness, it was power. Linda and Michael's collapse wasn't my victory, but their consequences were justice. I'd fought for my truth, not with hate, but with clarity and strength. My nonprofit was my legacy, a testament to what I'd built from nothing, and I poured my heart into it, knowing it changed lives. I thought about the people watching my story unfold, maybe on YouTube X or elsewhere. If you're facing a toxic family, know this: you don't owe them your peace. You can walk away, set boundaries, and build a life that's yours. It's hard, but it's worth it. Choose people who see your worth. Your own chosen family. I did, and it saved me. I'm Vanessa Riley, and this is the life I made, not the one they tried to break.